pay for stopping payments for my sister's wedding after she treated me like staff? I'm Harper, 26, the younger daughter in a family where being easygoing has always meant being available. My sister Avery is 29 and has spent most of her life being treated like the sun the rest of us were supposed to orbit. I used to think that description sounded bitter, so I avoided saying it out loud. I told myself Avery was simply more emotional than I was, so our parents worried about her more. She needed bigger birthday parties because she cared about those things. She got help replacing her first car because she was going through a hard time. When I needed something, my dad Robert would tell me I was resourceful. "You'll figure it out," he always said, as if that were a compliment. My mother Linda preferred a different word for me. Easygoing. In our family, easygoing meant I could change my plans. I could drive across town. I could cover something on short notice. I could sit at the end of the table. I could let a comment go because Avery was stressed. I could apologize first because my mother hated tension and my father hated being asked to take a side. For years, I believed being useful would eventually turn into being appreciated. Avery's wedding was what finally cured me of that. When she got engaged to Julian, I was genuinely happy for her. Julian was calm, polite, and a little reserved. He wasn't especially close to me, but we got along. He seemed to love Avery, and when he proposed, she called me before she posted the ring online. For about 10 minutes, I felt like her sister instead of her backup plan. Then she said, "You're good with details, right?" That was how it started. The first favor was fixing the hotel block. Avery had missed an email asking her to confirm the number of rooms, and the hotel released half of them. My mother called me while I was eating lunch. "You need to call them," she said. "Why me?" "Because Avery is crying." I put down my sandwich, called the hotel, stayed on hold for 23 minutes, and managed to get most of the rooms restored under a revised deadline. The second favor was the RSVP list. Avery had used 2 different versions of the guest spreadsheet, and 27 people had been marked as both attending and not attending. 3 relatives had been assigned children's meals even though their children were in college. The third favor was the florist, then the caterer, then the shuttle schedule. First, I didn't mind. Weddings are messy, and I wanted Avery's day to go well. I wasn't trying to be in the spotlight. I didn't ask to be maid of honor, and when she chose her best friend, Brooke, I told her it made sense. But small favors became emergencies, and emergencies became expenses. The first time my mother asked me to cover a payment, it was a $900 deposit for a floral wall Avery had added after seeing one online. "The family account is temporarily tight," Mom said. "We'll reimburse you next week." I hesitated. She lowered her voice. "It's not about money, Harper. It's about showing your sister you care." That sentence had worked on me since I was a teenager. I paid it. The following week, Dad asked me to cover the photo booth because the vendor needed a card authorization before the promotional rate expired. "Just help this once," he said in a voicemail. "We'll settle everything after the wedding. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be." Then came the open bar upgrade. Avery had originally chosen beer and wine, but one of Julian's cousins mentioned that his family expected a full bar. Mom panicked about looking cheap in front of the future in-laws. She asked me to put my card on the authorization form as a temporary hold. "It won't actually be charged until the final count," she said. "By then we'll switch it." They never switched it. A late-night snack station followed because Avery decided people would want sliders and fries after dancing. Then part of the post-wedding brunch because Mom had already told relatives it was being hosted by our side of the family. Every time I asked about repayment, the deadline for repayment kept shifting. After the next paycheck. After Dad's bonus. After the final guest count. After the wedding. And every time Mom asked me not to mention it around Avery. "She's under so much pressure," she would say. "She'd be humiliated if people knew we needed help." Apparently, she wasn't humiliated enough to stop asking. While I was handling invoices and fixing deadlines, I was also being quietly removed from anything that looked like family. Avery didn't invite me to the first dress appointment. I found out from photos my mother posted. When I asked why nobody had told me, Avery said the appointment had been very intimate, and that my energy sometimes made her feel judged. I asked what that meant. "You get quiet," she said. I get quiet when people spend 40 minutes insulting a salesperson. That, she said. That tone. I let it go. A few weeks later, I saw an early version of the wedding photo timeline attached to an email from the photographer. Under immediate family priority, it listed Avery, Julian, both sets of parents, Julian's siblings, and my parents again for separate combinations. My name wasn't there. I texted Avery, asking whether it was a mistake. She replied, "We can grab one if there's time. Please don't make this into a thing." That was becoming her favorite sentence. At the bridal shower, I arrived early because the bakery had printed Avery's name wrong on the cake board. I drove back, waited for them to fix it, and returned just before guests arrived. I also brought a stand mixer from Avery's registry, which cost more than I should have spent after already covering wedding expenses. During the shower, Mom stood near the gift table and told Aunt Paula, "Avery has handled almost all of this herself. She's been incredible." Paula looked impressed. I was standing 3 feet away holding a box of replacement place cards I had picked up that morning. Later, while we were stacking gifts, Paula said, "Your mom told me Avery's been doing this mostly alone. I know you two don't always get along, but couldn't you help a little more?" For a second, I thought she was joking. "I've been helping," I said. Paula gave me the kind of look people give when they don't want to get involved. "I'm sure you have." That night, I texted Avery. I wrote, "I need a repayment timeline. I'm not asking to embarrass you. I just can't keep carrying wedding costs without a plan." She took an hour to respond. "I'll pay you back after the honeymoon. Don't make it weird." I saved the message, mostly so I could refer to the promise later. Then Mom texted separately, "Please don't bring the payments up again before the wedding. Avery would be humiliated. We're family. Handle this privately." I stared at the message for a long time. I had been handling it privately. That was why they felt safe lying publicly. Around the same time, my mother asked me to find old pictures of Grandma June for a small memorial display at the reception. Grandma had died 4 years earlier. She was the only person in my family who ever seemed to notice when I was doing too much. She used to call me her steady girl, which I loved because it sounded different from easygoing. Steady felt like something I chose. Easygoing was something people used to move me around. Grandma owned a pearl necklace that I remembered clearly from childhood. It wasn't flashy. The pearls were small and slightly uneven, with an old silver clasp. When I was 16, she let me wear it to a family dinner and told me I had the patience to care for old things. After she died, I asked Mom what happened to it. "Family jewelry stays with the family," she said. I assumed that meant she had stored it with Grandma's other belongings. While searching for photos in the hallway closet, I found a small keepsake box under a stack of albums. Inside was an old birthday card addressed to me in Grandma's handwriting. The card itself was ordinary, but there was a folded piece of paper tucked behind it. I recognized Grandma's handwriting immediately. "Harper, the pearls are yours. I want you to have something that was loved before you and will be loved after me. You keep showing up even when no one claps for you. Don't let that make you forget what you deserve." My throat tightened so hard I had to sit on the floor. At the bottom, she had written the date and signed her full name. Mom walked into the hallway while I was still holding it. "What's that?" she asked. I showed her. Her face changed for half a second before she smoothed it out. "Oh," she said. "I forgot she wrote that. Where are the pearls?" "This is not the time." "Mom, we'll talk after the wedding." That answer bothered me, but I had already spent months being told every problem had to wait until after the wedding. I put the note in my purse. Mom noticed. "You should leave that here." It was addressed to me. She pressed her lips together. "Don't start something over an old necklace." I should have pushed harder then. I didn't. I still thought there was a version of this wedding where I could keep the peace, get repaid, and come out with some relationship intact. The rehearsal dinner was the night that illusion died. Mom asked me to arrive 90 minutes early because a few things still needed attention. I showed up in a dark green dress, carrying the revised seating list and 2 boxes of printed menus that Avery had forgotten to pick up. The dinner was in a private dining room with long windows, cream-colored tablecloths, place cards, and a printed seating chart on an easel near the entrance. Staff moved around lighting candles and setting water glasses. A woman at the door checked my name, then reached into a basket and handed me a pale gray wristband. It said Family Helper in black letters. I looked at it, then at her. What is this? It identifies the people assisting with setup, she said. The bride's mother gave us the list. I didn't put it on. Mom appeared beside me, took the wristband, and fastened it around my wrist herself. There, she said. Can you make sure the menus are placed correctly? I brought them. I thought I was helping for a few minutes and then joining dinner. You are joining dinner. I turned toward the seating chart. Avery and Julian were at the center table with both sets of parents. Julian's siblings were at the next table with grandparents, aunts, and uncles. My name was at a side table near the service door with 2 distant cousins, a vendor's plus one, and 3 people who had been helping decorate. I looked back at Mom. Why am I over there? She sighed before I had even finished the question. Please don't do this tonight. Do what? Make everything about where you sit. I'm Avery's sister. The main tables are full. They include people I've met twice. Julian's family traveled a long way. So did Paula. That's different. How? Mom glanced around to see who was listening, then stepped closer. Don't sit up front. Real guests need those seats. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard her. Real guests. You know what I mean. No, I don't. You're helping tonight. Just be flexible. Am I family tonight or am I staff? Her expression hardened. Tonight, you're whatever keeps your sister's wedding peaceful. Avery walked over in a white dress, already irritated. What's happening? I held up my wrist. Apparently I'm staff. It says Family Helper. And my seat is by the service door. Can you not make my wedding about your feelings? I'm asking why I'm not seated with my own family. Because there isn't room, Harper. There was room for me when deposits were due. Her eyes flicked toward Julian, who was greeting relatives across the room. Lower your voice. I'm not raising it. Dad came up behind Mom and said, Fix your face. People are arriving. That sentence did more than my mother's insult. Not because it was worse, but because it was so familiar. He knew exactly what was happening, and his only concern was whether my expression might expose it. Paula approached and touched my arm. Couldn't you let it go for one night? She asked quietly. Before I could answer, one of Avery's bridesmaids passed behind us and whispered to another, not quietly enough. That's the sister who refused to help. The other bridesmaid glanced at the boxes I had carried in and said, Seriously? That was when I understood the story about me wasn't casual exaggeration. It had been prepared. I looked at Mom. What have you been telling people? She gave me a wounded look. This is not the time. Avery folded her arms. Nobody said anything that wasn't true. What exactly is true? You've been difficult about everything. I fixed your hotel block. Because Mom asked. I fixed your RSVPs. You like organizing things. My card is attached to half your upgrades. Her face went still. Mom grabbed my elbow. Not here. I pulled my arm away without making a scene. Then I smiled. Not because anything was funny. I smiled because I had finally stopped waiting for them to tell the truth. I'm going to get some air, I said. Dad relaxed, assuming I had surrendered. Instead, I walked to the wedding coordinator. Her name was Marissa. I had spoken to her more often than Avery had over the previous 3 months. She was standing near the bar with a binder of timelines tucked under one arm. Can I ask you something privately? I said. She looked at my wristband, then at my face. Of course. We stepped into the hallway. I need to know which unpaid balances are still connected to my card. She hesitated. I can't discuss the couple's full account without authorization. I'm not asking for their full account. I'm asking about charges under my name and the authorization form I signed. That distinction mattered. Marissa nodded and opened the binder. She confirmed that my card was attached to the remaining balance for the open bar upgrade, the floral wall, the photo booth, the late-night snack station, and part of the post-wedding brunch. The base ceremony, dinner, basic drinks package, photography, and venue were already paid through other accounts. The wedding would happen without my card. The extras would not. Are any of those contracts in my name? I asked. The add-on authorizations are. The main event contract is not. I want my card removed from every unpaid balance and every optional upgrade I authorized. She looked toward the dining room. That will require a replacement payment method tonight. I understand. I also need to be clear that previously paid deposits may not be refundable. I'm not asking for refunds. I'm removing future financial responsibility. Marissa's expression shifted slightly. Not approval exactly, but understanding. I'll email you confirmation. Please include what has already been paid and what remains due. I can do that. I took out my phone and opened my email so she could verify the address. Before she closed the binder, she said, "There's one more thing you may want to know." What? The bride included a note that you're not part of the formal family photo priority list. I assumed that was because you preferred not to participate. I laughed once. It came out sharper than I intended. No. I asked why I wasn't listed. I'm sorry. Don't be. Thank you for telling me. I stepped outside and sat in my car. For 10 minutes I did nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't call a friend. I didn't post anything. I sat with both hands on the steering wheel and let myself admit what I had been avoiding. This was not a stressed family behaving badly for a few months. This was the system working exactly as designed. They needed me useful, quiet, and slightly ashamed. If I asked for repayment, I was keeping score. If I wanted a seat with my parents, I needed attention. If I corrected a lie, I was causing drama. They could take my money in private and deny my help in public because they were certain I cared more about belonging than they cared about me. My phone buzzed. Marissa had sent the confirmation. The list was painfully clear. Charges already paid. Charges pending. My name on the authorizations. Replacement card required by the end of the rehearsal dinner. I saved the email and opened my messages. There was Avery's promise. I'll pay you back after the honeymoon. Don't make it weird. There was Mom's request. Please don't bring this up. Avery would be humiliated. There was Dad's voicemail, still saved because I had forgotten to delete it. Just help this once and we'll settle it after the wedding. I sent the important screenshots to myself, then walked back inside. The room had filled while I was gone. People were drinking wine and talking over soft music. Avery was posing for pictures near the windows. My wristband felt tight, so I removed it and placed it on the check-in table. I sat at my assigned table. For the next 20 minutes, I was perfectly polite. I spoke to one of the distant cousins. I ate a roll. I thanked a server for refilling my water. I watched Mom glance at me several times, relieved that I seemed under control. Then Marissa approached Avery and Linda near the center table. I couldn't hear the first few words, but I saw Avery's smile disappear. Mom looked at me immediately. Marissa continued in the same calm, professional tone she used with every vendor issue. Avery's voice rose. What do you mean removed? Several conversations slowed. Marissa said, the base contract is fine. The upgrades need a new card by the end of dinner. Mom walked toward me so quickly she nearly hit a server carrying salad plates. What did you do? She hissed. I removed my card from unpaid charges. You can't do that. I just did. Avery joined her, pale and furious. The bar package is due tonight. Then pay it. We don't have a card with enough room. That sounds like something you should have planned for. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. Why are you doing this to me right now? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm stopping something you were doing to me. Dad pushed back from the table. Harper, fix this quietly. I looked at him. You knew my card was attached to those payments. This is neither the time nor the place. You all seem to say that whenever the truth has witnesses. Mom's face changed. She turned toward the room and raised her voice just enough for everyone to hear. I'm sorry, she announced. Harper has always been jealous of her sister. We tried to include her, but she's determined to punish Avery on the most important weekend of her life. The room went silent in pieces. A few people looked at me with open disapproval. Others looked embarrassed for all of us. Paula closed her eyes as if she had expected something like this. Avery began crying. I knew you would do this, she said. That was almost impressive. You knew I would stop paying for things after you publicly called me unhelpful? I never called you unhelpful. One of the bridesmaids looked at the floor. Julian walked over from the other side of the room. "What's going on?" he asked. Avery reached for him. "Harper canceled parts of the wedding." "I didn't cancel anything," I said. "I removed my card from charges that haven't been paid." Julian looked at me, then at Avery. "Why was her card on them?" Avery wiped her face. "It was temporary." "How much?" "That's not the point right now." "It is absolutely the point," he said. Mom stepped between them. "This is a family matter." Julian's mother, Diane, spoke from the center table. "Linda, we were told Harper refused to help." Mom's mouth tightened. I took the printed confirmation Marissa had given me and set it on the nearest table. Then I placed my phone beside it with Avery's repayment message open. "You all heard what they said I did," I said. "Now you can see what I actually paid for." I kept my voice level. I showed the deposit confirmation for the floral wall, the photo booth authorization, the bar upgrade form, the brunch payment, the vendor emails I had handled when Avery missed deadlines. I didn't pass my phone around like evidence in a courtroom. I didn't need to. Julian read the messages. Paula stood beside him and read them too. Avery's words were right there. "I'll pay you back after the honeymoon. Don't make it weird." Mom's message was directly underneath. "Please don't bring this up. Avery would be humiliated." Dad tried to interrupt. "Harper, enough." I played his voicemail. His own voice came through the speaker. "Just help this once and we'll settle it after the wedding." When it ended, nobody said anything for a few seconds. Paula looked at Mom. "Is any of this fake?" Mom's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look sorry. She looked cornered. "I only wanted everyone to have a beautiful night," she said. "That's not what I asked," Paula replied. "Is any of it fake?" Mom pressed a hand to her chest. "You're humiliating your own mother, Harper." "No," I said. "I'm refusing to lie for you." A relative near the end of the table said quietly, "I didn't know you paid for all that." Neither had most of them. Julian looked at Avery. "Did you tell my family she didn't help?" Avery stared at him. "People were asking why she wasn't involved." "So you lied." "I said she made everything difficult." "Did you tell them she was paying for the upgrades?" "It's my wedding, Julian." "That isn't an answer." She started crying harder. "Sisters don't keep score." I looked at her. People who plan to repay someone usually know what they owe. Dad rubbed both hands over his face. "Can we take this outside?" "No," I said. "You used everyone in this room to shame me first. I'm not going outside so you can rewrite it again." That was when I saw the small velvet jewelry box beside Mom's purse. It was open. Inside was Grandma June's pearl necklace. For a second, every invoice and every insult disappeared behind the sight of it. I remembered Grandma fastening it at the back of my neck when I was 16. I remembered her fingers shaking slightly with age. I remembered her telling me not to confuse being needed with being cherished. I pointed at the box. "Is Avery wearing Grandma's necklace tomorrow?" Mom immediately closed the lid. "This has nothing to do with the wedding costs." "No. It's worse." Avery looked between us. "Mom said it was family jewelry. It was left to me." Mom shook her head. "That note was informal." I reached into my purse and removed Grandma's handwritten letter. The paper was old and soft at the folds. I placed it beside the payment confirmations. "Read it," I said. Paula picked it up carefully. She read silently, then handed it to Julian. His expression changed. Mom said, "Your grandmother wanted the necklace used for special family occasions. That is not what she wrote. Avery is the bride. And I am the person Grandma left it to. Harper, don't be selfish." I stared at her. That word finally sounded ridiculous. "You took the one thing Grandma left me," hid the note, "and gave it to Avery because she was the bride. I kept it safe. You kept it from me." Avery put her hand over the box. I already planned my entire look around it. Julian looked at her. "Give it back." She turned toward him. "Excuse me. It belongs to Harper." "You don't understand." "I understand the note." Mom's face crumpled. "This family is falling apart over a necklace and a few wedding expenses. No, Paula said. It's falling apart because you thought Harper would never tell anyone. Avery pushed the velvet box across the table so hard it bumped into a water glass. Fine, she snapped. Take it. I hope it was worth ruining everything. Picked up the box. I didn't ruin your wedding. You took away half the reception. I removed luxury add-ons you expected me to finance while you told people I refused to help. You could have waited until Monday. You could have seated me with the family tonight. Mom started crying openly then, but even her tears felt familiar. They weren't about what she had done. They were about losing control of the room. Dad looked around at the relatives who were now watching him. He tried one last time. Harper put the card back. We'll resolve the rest later. No. Your mother is under a lot of stress. So am I. Be reasonable. I am being reasonable. The wedding is still happening. The food is paid. The venue is paid. The ceremony is paid. I'm not canceling your contracts or taking back old deposits. I'm simply not authorizing new charges on my card. You know they can't cover the difference tonight. Then they can use the package they can afford. Avery's voice broke. There won't be a full bar. There will still be drinks. The floral wall was for the photos. There are other walls. A few people looked down to hide smiles. I gathered my confirmations, my phone, Grandma's note, and the velvet box. Then I looked at Avery. You don't get to call me staff when the bill is due and sister when the card declines. I turned to Mom. I'm done being the vendor contact. I'm done correcting the RSVP list. I'm done covering shortages. Do not give anyone my number for wedding questions. Dad stood. If you walk out now, don't expect us to defend you when people say your timing was cruel. You never defended me when they said I did nothing. He had no answer. I left before dinner was served. In the parking lot, my hands shook so badly I had to sit in the car for several minutes before driving. I wish I could say I felt instantly free. I didn't. I felt sick. Standing up to your family is still painful even when they deserve it. Part of me kept expecting Mom to call and apologize. Another part expected Dad to admit he had failed me. A smaller, more embarrassing part hoped Avery would text something simple like, I'm sorry. I got carried away. Instead, my phone filled with messages. Mom, you need to come back and fix this. Dad, this went too far. Avery, everyone is staring at me because of you. A cousin I barely knew. I understand you were upset, but the night before the wedding? Then Paula texted. I need time to process this. I should have asked you before I judged you. I didn't answer anyone that night. The next morning Julian called. I almost ignored it, but I answered. He sounded exhausted. I didn't know, he said. I figured. How much did you already pay? I gave him the total from the confirmations. It was several $1,000s, not the entire wedding, but enough that no reasonable person could call it nothing. He was quiet. Avery told me you offered to help with some minor things because you wanted to feel involved. She told me she would pay me back after the honeymoon. I saw the message. I waited. He said. We replaced the bar package with beer and wine. The floral wall and photo booth are gone. The snack station was canceled. My parents are covering the basic brunch because relatives have already planned around it, but they are not happy. I'm sorry they were put in that position. They're not blaming you. That surprised me. He continued. I also added you to the immediate family seating and photo list. You can come as a guest. No setup. No errands. I looked at Grandma's necklace on my dresser. Did Avery ask you to call? No. Does she want me there? A long pause answered before he did. She's angry. Then changing the seating chart doesn't make me family. It makes me a problem you're trying to manage. That's fair. I'm not coming. He didn't pressure me. I understand, he said. Before we hung up, he added, for what it's worth, I told Avery we are paying you back before we spend anything on the honeymoon. That was the first practical consequence she hadn't expected. The wedding still happened. I didn't attend. According to Paula, it was beautiful, just smaller than Avery had planned. There was no floral wall, so pictures were taken near the windows. There was no photo booth. The bar served beer, wine, soda, and 2 pre-mixed cocktails. Nobody starved without midnight sliders. The brunch was moved from a private room to a simpler buffet setup, and Julian's parents made it very clear they were paying only because guests had already been promised breakfast. Avery wore a different necklace. Mom told several relatives I had abandoned the family 24 hours before the wedding. That version didn't travel far because too many people had seen the invoices on the table. Paula told me that Dad spent part of the reception being questioned by two uncles about why he had let me pay while pretending he knew nothing. He apparently kept saying he didn't want to get involved, until one of them asked how accepting my money counted as staying out of it. Julian's family also questioned Avery. They were less upset about the missing upgrades than the lying. Diane had believed I was a bitter sister who refused to participate. Finding out I had been quietly financing extras while being excluded made her wonder what else Avery changed depending on her audience. Julian did not cancel the wedding or ride in as some heroic rescuer. He married Avery, but he insisted they use part of the money reserved for the honeymoon to repay me, and he told her they were meeting with a counselor after they returned. The honeymoon was shortened by 3 days. A week later, I received a bank transfer from Avery for the amount she owed me directly. My parents still owed me for 2 smaller payments they had promised to cover. Dad sent his share after Paula called him. Mom did not. Instead, she called me the Monday after the wedding. I answered, hoping she was finally ready to apologize. She started with, "Are you happy now?" "No. You got your money back. You got the necklace. Everyone thinks I'm a terrible mother. I didn't tell you what to say at the rehearsal dinner. You could have handled it privately." I tried. For months. She exhaled hard. Then she said, "The caterer added a final charge because of the updated guest count. Can you at least cover that until your father gets paid?" I actually laughed. Not loudly. Just once. "Harper, I'm serious." "So am I. It's only temporary." "No. After everything this family has done for you?" "No. You're going to let us be charged a late fee?" "Yes." She went silent. I had spent my whole life explaining every no until the other person found a weak spot in it. That day I didn't. "No is a complete sentence," I said. Then I ended the call. Paula apologized to me in person 2 weeks later. She didn't make excuses. She said she had accepted Mom's version because it was easier than asking uncomfortable questions. "I should have asked you before I judged you," she said. "Yes," I replied. We're not suddenly best friends, but I appreciated that she said it plainly. Dad sent me a long text about how he had been trying to keep the peace. I wrote back that peace built on one person staying silent was not peace. I told him I would speak to him when he was ready to discuss what he did, not what he failed to prevent. He didn't respond for 3 days. Then he sent, "I knew you were paying and I let your mother minimize it. That was wrong." It wasn't enough to repair everything, but it was the first honest sentence I had ever received from him about our family. Avery and I have barely spoken. She sent one message saying I had made the wedding weekend about accountability instead of love. I told her accountability only feels like an attack when someone expects immunity. She blocked me for a month, then unblocked me without saying anything. Mom still tells people I'm holding a grudge. Maybe I am. A grudge is what families often call a memory that refuses to be edited. Grandma June's necklace is now in a small box in my room, along with her note. I had the clasp repaired and the pearls professionally restrung. I don't wear it often, but when I do, I remember that she saw me clearly long before I did. Some relatives still believe my timing was harsh. They say I could have waited until after the wedding, kept the card active, smiled through the dinner, and demanded repayment later. That would have preserved the event. It also would have preserved the lie. I didn't destroy decorations, cancel the ceremony, or take back money that had already been spent. I didn't scream at Avery in front of her guests. I simply stopped funding things after my family made it clear that my money was welcome and I was not. I didn't ruin my sister's wedding. I just stopped financing the version of the family where I was only valuable when I was useful. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.